This is Lucky as a newborn puppy. This picture of Lucky is sitting on my desk in my office. I had a suspicion when he was a newborn that he might be a perfect addition to my breeding program. I'm Shawn Kent Hayashi. Here's a preview of what's coming in this video. Fortunately, I decided to Embark DNA test Lucky a week after he was born. And so I got his results right away. Was thrilled to learn what's in his Embark DNA report. Join me as we explore the details of this little boy's Embark DNA report. This is my portal in the Embark DNA breeder system. It has all of my active breeding dogs listed in it with their Embark DNA report. What I want to show you today is Lucky's Embark DNA report. The first page of the report reveals that yes, Honey Bear's Lucky Boy is one very fetching miniature Schnauzer. He is 100% miniature Schnauzer. In the Embark DNA report, you can see several other types of information when you click on any of these drop-down buttons. And so here it will explain more about miniature Schnauzers. This is the full breed description that is included in Lucky's Embark DNA report. Embark enables you to download the results or share the results, but I found that when I do that, there are certain loci information that you can't see. So I'll distinguish between those here as we're going through the report too. This is the downloaded 37-page version of the report. And one of the things you see right away on the first page is genetic stats, predicted adult weight 14 pounds. Unfortunately, the Embark DNA results have never worked for my dogs. They always indicate that they are going to weigh more than they actually end out weighing. Lucky is charting at 8 weeks old to weigh probably around 9 pounds, which is completely reasonable. His dad is 9 pounds. His mom is 7 pounds. And so he will be much smaller than Embark says that he will be. So in the downloaded version, we see the miniature Schnauzer again. We see maternal line and where his line came from. We see his paternal line and where that likely came from. And then the next part of the report has to do with traits and coat color. We already know just from looking at him that he has 2 little E's. In other words, he is recessive red. He is light colored. But what we don't see on this report is the red intensity index, the loci information, which we'll go look at in just a minute. We also see that Lucky is on the K locus, KBKY, which means even though he has 2 little E's, recessive red, he could produce a solid dominant black puppy. Here is the red intensity index, and we can see that he is labeled as intermediate red, but I have to go back to the online version to see the actual loci. Let me show you what I mean by that. In the online portal, you press the button traits, and then it takes you to these same trait colors that we're talking about, and you can expand these. So here our intensity, and this is a linkage test. Here we can see Lucky's red intensity index. And the way we think about this is there are 10 spaces that could be red. And if all 10 were red, that would be high intensity. But in this case, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 10 reds. So if I'm trying to get very dark red colored dogs, I'm going to breed him to a dog that would have red here, and potentially red here, which would mean that the puppies would get darker red pigment. This is one of our puppies who would be recessive red and have few red markers. So out of the red intensity scale, this puppy is more on the white side than on the red side, and therefore probably has 2 or 3 reds. This is Lucky's mom, and you can see that she is darker red on the red intensity index. So on one side of the index for recessive red, we would have white puppies, and on the far side, we would have red puppies, and we use a 10-point scale to determine how many reds a recessive red puppy actually has. This is Lucky's grandmother, Honeybee, who is intermediate red. So these beigey biscuit colors can be in that intermediate. I want to point out that the red intensity index does matter even for dogs that aren't going to be the base color. So in this case, this is Burberry, and you can see she is chocolate and red. So she has a capital E, which means she's going to be a dark-based puppy, dog, but she has a high red intensity index, and so that's coming through in her points. The points here refer to above the eyes, her beard, and her legs. This is a photograph of Mocha. He would have a capital E. In other words, he's going to be dark colored. You can see that just by looking at him. And he doesn't have points. So he's a solid chocolate. But he does have a very high red intensity index. So in offspring that would come from him, if there were points in any of those puppies, they could be dark red. So when you look at his boy Odin, you see Odin has red points. In other words, eyebrows, beard, whereas his son Oscar is a solid colored chocolate who probably has a very high red intensity index also. Next in the report, we see the A locus, AT, which means he can have puppies that are phantom, that have points. The space over the eyes and the beard and the legs. This is an example of 3 puppies that have points, and you can see that their eyebrows are a different color, their beards, and the front of their legs, the front of their chest. Now, this puppy would have potentially a higher red index than, say, this puppy. We can tell that just by looking. This one is whiter, where this one is redder. So this could potentially be a chocolate and red or a black and red, and this would be called a black and silver, and this would be a phantom. The brighter the white, the color then becomes phantom, even though a phantom is a black and silver. So this is a black and silver. When it gets really bright white, we call that a phantom. And having the red intensity starting to pop through in this is something that I think is new in Schnauzer breeding. I say it's new because there are more of us now who are focused on creating these high red intensity color dogs, and it enables that to come through in the offspring like this. Next up is the D, and this is 2 capital Ds. It is not expressed. My dogs typically are not. I've never had a dog that was dilute, actually. Next up is the Cocoa, and we do not have Cocoa alleles in any of my dogs. Next up is one of the loci that is important to me, and this is the B locus. So when you have two capital B's here, that would be a black-based dog. If you had a capital B and a little b, that would be a black-based dog who could produce a liver or chocolate color puppy. But in this case, he has a chocolate nose and green eyes, and he can produce liver-colored puppies if I bred him to a girl who had a capital E. In other words, a dark-based coat color. Another one of the traits that's really important to me is the S locus. And here what we can see is that Lucky is able to have solid color. He has two capital S's here. And so he's not able to have puppies that would be party colored. This is Ginger Tea Time, and she is a red party. So party means that the base of the dog is white, and then there is some color on top of that. In this case, she has a very high red intensity index. She has beautiful green eyes and a chocolate colored nose, and she could have puppies that have this same party coloring, but not if I bred her to Lucky. If I bred her to Lucky, all of those puppies would be recessive red, green eyes, chocolate nose. I don't have any dogs that are Merle. I stay away from Merle myself just because I don't want to create a problem by breeding two Merles to each other. And I have heard some problems that can come from this, so I stay away from this trait. Lucky is what's called fully furnished, meaning mustache, beard, eyebrows. Lucky is also able to have a long coat. So if you wanted to let it grow out and you didn't want to keep it clipped, you could do that. This is an example of what I mean. If you wanted the hair to be long on one of these little Schnauzers, you could easily do that just by letting the hair grow out. This is one of Lucky's sisters from a previous litter. And so you see Ruby here with her coat long and full. There are lots of other trait information here that I tend to skip over myself because they're not really relevant for me in what I'm doing in my own breeding program. And for me, frankly, this is the most important part of the Embark DNA results, the health report. And I'm, of course, looking for dogs that are genetically clear for my breeding program. These are the 3 breed relevant results that Embark has tracked. And of course, he's clear for those. Lucky has clear results in the 269 known issues in dogs, as well as the 3 that are breed relevant. You might say, hey, what is this notable results ALT activity? We have to go back to the online report rather than the downloaded report and able to click into what does this ALT activity mean. And frankly, it's not something that worries me at all. It's very common in little dogs. And here you will see a description of what this is, as well as the fact that he inherited one trait here, which means his ALT blood level may be low normal. Again, most little dogs are. This is not a problem at all. Vets just need to be aware that if for some reason they are testing ALT level in a blood test, that the results of that blood chemistry panel may be lower than usual. They do a good job of making sure they are explaining regularly in this report that a genetic test is not a diagnosis for a disease. So there is no disease associated with having low ALT. It's just a blood test result. If for any reason we were ever doing a blood test on him and the ALT results came back low, that would actually be normal in these little dogs. I love seeing these pages, multiple pages of just nonstop clear clear, clear. So again, these are the known genetic issues in dogs currently that Embark tests for. And you can see that Lucky is clear for all of these, which causes me to say he's perfect for my breeding program. In my Embark Breeder Tools toolkit, there is something called Pair Predictor, and I can put in a sire like Lucky and a female like, let's say, Dazzle, and I can calculate the coefficiency of inbreeding to determine whether or not they would be a good pairing. And so here what we see is the average coefficiency for inbreeding in miniature Schnauzers is 25%. And if I were to breed these two together, we would get 22%. And my commitment, my goal is always when I'm breeding to breed in such a way that I am going below the breed average. This also enables me to see their genetic traits together. And so if I understand genetic traits really well, you can look at these and say, okay, Dazzle has 2 high capital double E's, which means she can only have dogs that would have dark colored coats. So she could have chocolate or black, but she cannot have recessive red puppies, even if I bred her to Lucky. They both have this dominant black as well, so this is a really great pairing to get solid black puppies. They have AT, which means we could get puppies that would have points, or some people refer to this as like a black and silver, or a chocolate and tan, a liver and tan. The B here, of course, fits nicely with Dazzle because she's black, so our capital B tells us she is black. And that she can also produce chocolate puppies. So if bred to Lucky, a portion of the puppies would be solid black and a portion of them would be liver-based. None of the puppies would be party, however. So the Embark Breeder Tools go on to show me other bits of information that can be really helpful. So I've already mentioned it, and I can tell it just from looking at the data myself, but 50% of the puppies are probably going to be black-based, and 50% of the puppies would be liver chocolate. I use another software package called Dog Breeder Pro to help me ensure that I'm breeding in such a way that I will be producing puppies that are the colors that are on my waiting list. Here's an example. If I knew that Oreo Cupcake, her registered name is SVCC Oreo Cupcake, but this is Poppy. So if I knew that Poppy was in season and I looked at the top of my waiting list to see what colors people were wanting right now at the very top of my waiting list, I might then check to see what will happen if I breed Lucky and Poppy. And here, this shows me the forecast. So they could produce solid black or dominant black dogs. They can also produce solid chocolate. They can produce puppies that would have points, the black and silver, black and the phantom colors as well. So here you can see how I use this tool to ensure that I am breeding to what's on my waiting list. My waiting list is so important to me, and I am so grateful to the people who are on my waiting list. I look to see what's the color preference at the top of the list. And if, for example, I saw that having a solid red puppy, a solid cream, white, beige, anything like that, this would be a perfect pairing. So Ginger Tea Time is a red party girl. She has a very high red intensity index, beautiful green eyes, chocolate nose. I showed you a picture of her earlier. If I were to breed her to Lucky, I can already tell you the only options are puppies that will look like Lucky. In other words, high red intensity index, brown nose, green eyes. 100% of those puppies. However, if what's up next on my waiting list is black or liver chocolate and Emanelli is in season, I could still breed Lucky to Emanelli and produce offspring that are dominant black, chocolate liver, black and silver, liver and tan. So that's it. I would not get any recessive red puppies from breeding Emanelli and Lucky because Emma has 2 capital E's. Thus, she can only produce dark colored dogs, even breeding her to Lucky. If you're enjoying this topic, breeding, understanding DNA, check out my YouTube channel. This is my channel page. And if you go to playlists right here, you will discover that I have a playlist called Embark DNA Testing. And here you will find my breeding dogs, as well as information about how to use DNA with dogs. I have a commitment to breeding only genetically clear dogs, and that's part of the reason why I can offer a 10-year genetic health guarantee on all of my puppies, because I'm using Embark DNA on all of my breeding dogs. At Lucky's vet visit, when the veterinarian confirmed what I could also feel myself, everything was in place. That's right. Both of Lucky's testicles are in the right spot. So therefore, he is a perfect addition to our breeding program at SVCC Toys. He is a 4th-generation puppy for me. So I know his ancestors. I can very easily predict his temperament, personality, just all the attributes about this little boy. And I know he's going to help us produce beloved family pets here at SVCC Toy Schnauzers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave us a comment below, ask your questions. Your questions help us to inform what videos to do next. So thank you so much for being here.